If she goes silent and you panic, you've already lost. Believe it or not, when she doesn't call or message you, it often means she's watching how you react. Silence is rarely random. Silence is information. Silence reveals strength or the lack of it. Most men think attraction is built through action, more texts, more effort, more reassurance. But what actually builds attraction is emotional stability under uncertainty. When her phone goes quiet, that's when your confidence gets tested. The average man sees no notification and immediately creates a negative story. She's losing interest. She found someone better. I messed up. And from that insecurity, he reacts, he double texts, he sends memes to restart conversation. He asks if everything is okay. He tries to pull her attention back. But here's what she's really observing: can you handle space without collapsing? When a woman pulls back slightly, it's often subconscious. She wants to feel that you are centered, that your world doesn't revolve around her responses, that your emotional state isn't dependent on her validation. Because if your happiness depends on her texting you back, that pressure becomes heavy, and pressure kills attraction. Strong men don't chase silence, they lean back into their life, they continue their mission, they go to the gym, they focus on business, they meet friends, they improve themselves, not to play games because their life is genuinely full, and that fullness is attractive. When she doesn't text and you don't flinch, you communicate something powerful without saying a word. You communicate abundance. You communicate self control. You communicate that you enjoy her, but you don't need her to regulate your emotions. That's rare. Most men fail this invisible test because they fear loss. They think action equals control. But sometimes restraint is the highest form of control. When you don't react emotionally, when you don't demand reassurance, when you don't overcompensate, you create space for her to wonder. And wonder builds attraction. She begins to think, why isn't he chasing? Why is he busy? That curiosity shifts the dynamic. Now she feels the slight uncertainty instead of you, and uncertainty in small doses fuels desire. This isn't about manipulation, it's about emotional discipline. It's about not allowing temporary silence to shake your internal foundation. Because the truth is, if a simple delay in communication destabilizes you, that insecurity will eventually show in other ways too. When she goes quiet, it's not the moment to perform, it's the moment to demonstrate stability. The man who stays calm in silence shows he has options, purpose, and inner balance. And that's the man she doesn't forget. When she doesn't call or message you, it can mean something most men completely misunderstand. She needs space to feel attraction again. Attraction doesn't grow in constant contact, it grows in space. It grows in anticipation. It grows in the moments where she's not hearing from you and starts wondering what you're doing. But most men, the moment communication slows down, try to fill the silence. They think more attention will fix distance. In reality, too much attention often creates it. Think about it. When something is always available, always accessible, always responding instantly, it becomes predictable. And predictability, while comfortable, doesn't create excitement. Excitement lives in mystery. It lives in the unknown. It lives in the gap between interactions. When she pulls back slightly instead of panicking, understand what's happening emotionally. She's recalibrating. She's feeling her own rhythm. She's seeing if she misses you, and she can't miss you if you're constantly there. Space allows her emotions to breathe. If you're texting all day, every day, giving constant updates, constantly checking in, you remove the opportunity for anticipation. There's no time for her to think about you because you're always right in front of her. Attraction needs contrast, togetherness, and distance. Connection in space. The strongest move when communication slows is often doing nothing different. You don't chase, you don't withdraw dramatically, you simply stay steady. You continue living your life. You don't reward distance with extra effort, and you don't punish it with coldness. You remain centered. That centered energy is powerful. When you allow space without anxiety, she begins to feel something subtle: curiosity. She starts wondering what you're doing. She checks her phone. She replays conversations. She feels the gap. And that feeling of missing you slightly is healthy. It creates emotional movement toward you. But if you close every gap immediately, you interrupt that process. This is why men who have purpose outside of dating naturally create attraction. They're busy, they're engaged in life, they're not glued to their phones waiting for notifications. Their delayed responses aren't tactics, they're byproducts of a full life, and a full life is magnetic. When she senses that you're not anxiously monitoring the connection, she relaxes. There's no pressure, no emotional demand, no invisible weight on her shoulders to constantly reassure you. The interaction feels light again. Remember, this attraction is like a rubber band. If you never allow it to stretch, it has no tension. And tension, the right kind, is what creates spark. So when she doesn't call or text, don't rush to close the space. Let it work for you, because sometimes the strongest way to grow closer is to step back just enough to let her lean in. When she doesn't call or message you, it also means something deeper. Your life should still be moving forward. If her silence freezes your mood, interrupts your focus, and hijacks your productivity. That's not attraction, that's dependency. And dependency quietly destroys the very thing you're trying to build. A confident man has momentum. He has direction. He has goals pulling him forward. So when a woman goes quiet for a few hours or even a few days, it doesn't derail him. He notices it, sure, but he doesn't spiral. He doesn't abandon his priorities. He doesn't sit around refreshing his phone. He keeps moving. The problem is many men subconsciously make a woman the center of their emotional world too early. They start structuring their day around her responses. They delay plans in case she texts. They lose focus at work because they're wondering what she's doing. And when communication slows, their entire internal stability shakes. That instability is felt. Women are extremely perceptive to shifts in energy. If your mood rises and falls based on her texting patterns, eventually that pressure leaks into your behavior. You become slightly more reactive, slightly more eager, slightly more anxious, and attraction begins to fade. But when your life remains full, gym sessions, business goals, creative projects, friendships, self improvement, or silence simply becomes background noise. You don't ignore it, you just don't prioritize it above your purpose. Purpose is magnetic. When a man has something meaningful he's building, he doesn't need constant reassurance. His validation comes from progress, from discipline, from growth. That internal fulfillment makes him emotionally steady. And emotional steadiness is attractive. Here's the truth: a woman wants to join your life, not become your life. She wants to feel like she's entering a strong, structured world, not replacing the foundation of it. If the moment she pulls back, your world collapses, that signals that she was the foundation. That's too much responsibility for anyone. When she doesn't message, it's an opportunity to check in with yourself. Are you neglecting your mission? Have you been over investing emotionally too early? Have you slowed down your growth because you were distracted? Silence exposes imbalance. Instead of trying to restore communication, restore your momentum, focus deeper at work, spend time with friends, read, build, improve, not to impress her, but to strengthen yourself. Ironically, when your life is progressing regardless of her attention, she feels that shift. Your responses become less needy, your tone becomes calmer, your energy feels grounded again, and grounded energy pulls people back naturally. When a man is driven, centered, and moving forward, he doesn't chase attention, he attracts it because the world is drawn to those who are already in motion. When she doesn't call or message you, sometimes it means something very simple. She's matching your energy, and the investment level isn't as high as you thought. Attraction is rarely built on words alone, it's built on effort, on consistency, on mutual engagement. And when communication slows down, instead of immediately assuming something dramatic, you have to look at the balance. Has the energy truly been equal, or have you been carrying most of it? Many men overinvest early. They initiate every conversation, they plan every interaction, they keep the momentum alive single handedly. And because she responds warmly, they assume attraction is strong, but warmth is not the same as pursuit. Politeness is not the same as desire. When she stops reaching out, it can reveal the truth about the dynamic. If you're always the one driving communication, and the moment you pause, she disappears, that tells you something important. It tells you the energy was one sided. And one sided energy cannot sustain attraction long term. This isn't about ego, it's about awareness. Healthy attraction has rhythm. Sometimes you initiate, sometimes she does. There's flow, there's reciprocity. When she invests, you match it. When you invest, she matches it. That balance creates emotional safety and excitement at the same time. But when you give more than you receive consistently, the scales tip. She begins to relax too much. She leans back because she doesn't have to lean forward. And slowly, you become the pursuer while she becomes the responder. That's not polarity, that's imbalance. So when she goes quiet, instead of rushing to restart the engine, observe. Does she ever initiate? Does she check in? Does she create opportunities to see you? If the answer is no, her silence may simply reflect her level of interest. And here's where strength matters. You don't try to convince someone to invest, you don't negotiate attraction, you don't perform harder to earn basic effort. You allow people to show you where they stand. If she matches your energy when you pull back slightly, that's a healthy sign. It means she values the connection. But if she fades entirely when you stop pushing, then you were carrying something that wasn't mutual. That realization can hurt, but it's empowering because now you're no longer guessing, you're responding to reality. And responding to reality is always stronger than reacting to fear. Attraction should feel like a dance, not a chase. When both people step forward at different moments, the connection feels alive. But when one person does all the stepping, eventually, exhaustion sets in, silence reveals investment, and the man who pays attention to effort instead of empty reassurance protects his time, his energy, and his self respect. Because real desire doesn't need to be forced, it shows up on its own. When she doesn't call or message you, it can also mean something far more psychological. Your emotional strength is being measured, not consciously, not like she's sitting there thinking Let me test him. But attraction naturally responds to stability. And whenever there's uncertainty, your reaction reveals your emotional foundation. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. That's why most men rush to eliminate it. The moment communication slows, anxiety creeps in. And instead of sitting with that discomfort, they try to fix it. They reach out again. They ask if everything's okay. They look for reassurance. They try to regain control. But emotional control is not about controlling the situation. It's about controlling yourself. When she pulls back slightly, what she feels from you next matters. If she senses tension, urgency, or hidden frustration, that energy creates pressure, and pressure makes her lean back further. Not because she dislikes you, but because emotional weight feels heavy, strength feels light. A man who can handle ambiguity without spiraling communicates security. He doesn't need constant updates to feel grounded. He doesn't assume the worst. He doesn't catastrophize silence. He understands that attraction has rhythms, moments of closeness, and moments of space. When you stay calm in the unknown, you demonstrate resilience. Resilience is deeply attractive because it signals leadership. It signals that in stressful situations, you won't collapse, you won't overact, you won't make impulsive emotional decisions. You stay steady, and steadiness builds trust. If something as small as delayed texting shakes you, what happens during real challenges, during disagreements, during life stress? Emotional stability during minor uncertainty shows that you're capable of handling major uncertainty too. Women don't want perfection, they want emotional safety. And emotional safety comes from consistency. When she goes quiet and you remain relaxed, focused, and composed, she feels that your next interaction won't carry hidden tension. There won't be passive aggressive undertones. There won't be subtle resentment. It will feel normal, calm, grounded. But if you stew in anxiety, overthink every scenario, and build stories in your head, that internal chaos eventually leaks out. It shows in your tone, in your timing, in your energy. And energy speaks louder than words. This is why emotional discipline matters so much. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring without losing control. It's about liking someone while still liking yourself enough to stay balanced. When she senses that her temporary silence doesn't destabilize you, something shifts. You no longer feel reactive, you feel solid. And solid men are rare because most people are ruled by emotion. Very few master it. And the man who masters his emotions never needs to chase reassurance. He becomes the calm in the middle of uncertainty. When she doesn't call or message you, sometimes it means the most powerful move you can make is to do nothing. And that's the hardest thing for most men because doing nothing feels like losing control. It feels passive. It feels risky. Your mind tells you, if I don't reach out, she'll forget about me. So you fight the silence. You try to restart the conversation. You send something casual. You look for an excuse, anything to avoid sitting in that uncomfortable space. But strength is often revealed in restraint. When you immediately react to silence, you communicate urgency. Urgency subtly signals fear, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. And even if your words sound calm, that underlying energy can still be felt. Doing nothing, on the other hand, communicates confidence. It says, I'm not shaken. I have patience. It says, my world doesn't stop because my phone is quiet. That kind of emotional composure is rare, and rarity creates value. This doesn't mean you play games. It doesn't mean you intentionally ignore her to manipulate the situation. It means you allow space to exist without trying to control it. You allow her to come toward you at her own pace, because attraction that has to be chased constantly isn't attraction, it's maintenance. When you stop trying to force momentum, you give her room to feel something on her own. If she reaches out, you respond warmly. If she doesn't, you continue living your life. No dramatic exits, no emotional speeches. No. Why are you distant? Conversations triggered by impatience. Silence is information. If she misses you, she'll message. If she values a connection, and if she'll reach out, and if she doesn't, that's information too. Either way, doing nothing protects your dignity. It prevents you from overinvesting where energy isn't being returned. Patience also shifts the dynamic internally. Instead of focusing on her behavior, you focus on yours. Are you building your life? Are you growing? Are you improving? When your attention shifts back to self development, you regain power. The man who can sit in uncertainty without scrambling to fix it shows abundance. He knows that if this connection fades, another opportunity will come. He doesn't cling, he doesn't plead, he doesn't chase silence, he trusts timing, he trusts himself. And here's the paradox: when you stop trying to control the outcome, you often become more attractive because now your energy is relaxed, grounded, detached from desperation. Doing nothing isn't weakness, it's controlled strength. It's the quiet confidence of a man who knows that what's meant for him will move toward him, and what doesn't was never aligned in the first place.